Hello and welcome back to the sick is already coming up.
Oh.
Let's try that one more time. Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games podcast for episode 147. Today we are recapping the biggest moments from the Game Awards 2024 with all the winners and announcements that came from the biggest night in gaming. And joining me this week, Eric, aka Mrthehuman. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you? Not great. Based off of that intro, but
we're recovering. I
yeah.
thought I had got right before you hopped in the call. I thought I had gotten all of it out, and then I started speaking immediately. He's like, "Nope, it's right there."
I mean, we just like a little inside baseball. We just talked for like 15 minutes, and you were fine. And then
it was
like
totally fine.
immediately you clicked live, and it just sunk immediately.
And then all of a sudden, So after, for those of you that were around last week when I live streamed my reactions to the Game Awards with friend of the show GWT Mori, the second that show ended, because during that show I was like, I am not feeling good, something's a brewing. The second that show ended, just complete nosedive. I felt so horrible. Friday, called out of work, was in bed basically all weekend, which ended up serving me in a way because I put like 40 hours into Metaphor, which we can talk about. But
40 hours,
today is
good weekend.
Oh yeah, today is the first day in a minute that I'm like feeling mostly alive, but still, as we heard from the very opening, I'm still dealing, but we're feeling well enough to be here. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we didn't have to push, because I've been looking forward to this episode. And
Yeah.
for you, your first official appearance on the podcast.
Know.
Welcome.
I've been lurking around a little bit in the Twitch chat here and there when I can catch a show. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here. We've been
Hell
talking
yeah.
about this for a while, and we have multiple plans. One of them involving we'll probably get into about me sherping you through Elden Ring.
Plans are a brewing. We're going to meet you a little bit more here in just a second, but before we do that, some quick housekeeping. We have a lot of video game stuff to talk about, because this is the Spotlight Games podcast, where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod, or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod, just like Cognitive Clips is. Welcome in, Cognitive. So be sure to follow us like Cognitive does, so that you're notified when we go live, so you can be part of the conversation. Spotlight Games streams are back in full swing. We are streaming my full playthrough of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Last week got off track because I got sick, but we're going to pick that back up. I might be back online tomorrow night, but definitely Thursday night. Might do a twofer this week to try to catch up. So follow us over here on Twitch, that if you're interested in watching a little Indiana Jones. So far, pretty cold on the game, but I'm told that it gets better as you keep going. So I'm about 3 hours in. I think I did about 3 hours that first stream, and so far 3 hours in, can't imagine anyone giving this game a 9. But
I've heard nothing but good things.
I know, it's crazy, but I'm hoping that it turns me around, because so far pretty disappointed with Indiana Jones, but we can talk about it. And then finally, join the Discord. We have a fun little Discord where we discuss what we're playing and generally goof off together about video games. So if that sounds like something you like, click the link in the description or find it in the bio of our socials. Join the Discord. Eric, as we said at the top of the show, your first time with us on the mic at Spotlight Games Pod. Tell our folks at home and in the chat. We got Dumpster Boy in the chat. We got Cash Crow in the chat. Cash, long time. Good to see you. Introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about, what are the games you like? Maybe if you have a favorite game of all time, a favorite genre. Tell us a little bit about Mrthehuman.
So I am currently a podcast host on Short Game Long Talk. You might have seen me if you're in the Discord. I post stuff on there quite a bit. Favorite game of all time is tough. I probably would say Persona 5 Royale, which leads into my obsession with Metaphor.
Yep.
And then it's crazy because for the longest time I didn't really have an answer to what's my favorite game of all time. It would flip flop based on what I played last.
Sure.
And Elden Ring was up there, Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom was up there, Bloodborne was up there, and then it was it would flip based on whatever I played. And then I played Persona 5 Royale, put 167 hours into that over 4 months, and then I was I joke about it, but I think about that game once a week, and that's still something that happens all the time.
I believe it. Persona games, man, they're magic. The first one that I played was Golden on the Vita, and so
my last one I need to play.
For a long time, that was like top 3 for me. It still lingers like in my top like 5, 6-ish. I think it's part of that, like the first one is your favorite one type thing. But I played 5 and I really liked 5, but I still need to finish Royal. So there's so much content that I've never experienced because I only ever played the original.
Where did you
release.
leave off?
With Royal or Royale? I think I got maybe like 40 hours in-ish. I definitely, it's been a while. So I was playing it on the Steam Deck because I have learned, which part of the reason that I'll talk about in a minute, that I've really gotten back into Metaphor is I got the Portal. Because of Golden being on the Vita, my brain wants Persona to be a handheld game. And so my original playthrough of 5, I struggled a bit of like feeling that, especially in dungeons, of like, I kind of feel like I want to either be able to be multitasking or be able to just pick up and go whenever I want. And that was tougher on a TV, right? With the PlayStation 4. So once I was able to play it on a mobile device, I was like, ooh, I got to finally play Persona 5 Royale. And I definitely got past, it's been a while, so I don't fully remember, but I definitely got past the first dungeon with the gym teacher. Do you remember off the top of your head what the next dungeon is after that?
The next one after that is with the painter.
So I think I'm in the middle of the painter part. I think I was gonna say the painter, but then I was like, maybe he's a lot later in the game.
No,
but I think that's right.
The painter, and then after that, I think is the floating. There's a mafia guy after that.
I have not gotten there again. Yet. So I'm somewhere in the painting section.
The third temple or dungeon or whatever you want to call it, palace. That's what they're called.
Palace. They're called palaces, yes.
Has one of my favorite, like, the awakening. It has like one of my favorite awakening scenes of all time. It's so good.
I love Persona.
It's so good. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was like, is it crazy to ask for Persona 6 at the Game Awards? Like,
come on. So is it safe to say then that so far your game of the year for this year is Metaphor ReFantazio?
Oh yeah, we did a whole episode. The Leveling Friends group, which is my Discord group, we did a Game of the Year episodes with Cognitive. He was on it, and my friend Chris, the Nerdlies. We all had our top 5s. And yeah, Metaphor with a bullet is my number one. Like by far, it was like the number one, and then like number 2 like was pretty far away. But still very good games. Metaphor is nuts. And apparently, I talked with Cayman a little bit. And I'm like about 10 to 15 hours away from finishing it. So I was like, oh man, I got to do that.
Yeah. As I said at the top, from being sick, I put so much time into Metaphor. I made so much progress. I don't know. I have no idea how much is left. Probably a lot. I think I'm around like the 50-hour mark now.
What happened last?
I am
like spoiler free-ish.
I'll say like a biome-ish area. I'm in that like southern island that's like a dragon island or whatever.
Fuck yeah. That's like one of my favorite parts of the game. Yeah, you've got a ways away still.
That makes sense. I figured, but it's ever so slowly just rising up my top 10 list, because right now my number one with a bullet right now is the Veilguard. I've really loved that game, and then right under that is Astrobot. But I mean, Metaphor already is like in that like 5-6 range, and it's climbing. It just
Astrobot probably would have made my list if I had a PS5, but I don't, so unfortunate there.
Sure.
And then I could not in good conscience play Veilguard and Metaphor at the same time.
Yeah, no way. Too big.
I literally have a rule for next year for 2025 is that I'm allowed one long game. I can plan for one long game because I've said this multiple times, like on different podcasts and stuff. I've strung together I did Baldur's Gate 3, then went into Elden Ring, then back to Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh god.
Prior to that, I did like Persona 3 Reload, then went back to Elden Ring, and then did Persona 3 Reload again, and then that went directly into Metaphor, and I was like, I have to stop. This is everything I've played is like 80 hours plus minimum, and I'm like, I have to stop.
That'll give you burnout for sure. Just going from one massive title to the next.
So one game next year that I'm planning. If a big game comes out that I'm like, okay, right, I'm going to play it. But I'm going to play Persona 4 Golden. That's my big game I'm allowing myself next year.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll have time for a replay, but no, never mind. I was going to say, but if you covered it on your show, but you wouldn't cover it on your show because that is by far not a short game. That is a very long game.
I have a running joke of last year I rickrolled everyone on April Fools and posted a thing saying that like, oh, finally people have been asking for it. It's long game, short talk,
Ooh,
where
that's
we
good.
talk about it for 10 minutes. And it was Persona 5. And I got so many people with that. Even my wife was like, I don't remember you recording this. So I have a plan this year of something for a long game for
Could
April.
be
So
good.
we could do something. We'll see.
Anything else that you've been playing recently that you have to get off your chest before we start jumping into the Game Awards?
I mean, the Pokemon TCG Pocket, right, is like.
I mean, I am wearing the Pokemon sweater.
Yeah, I have a bunch of
pack,
Pokemon stuff behind me. Yeah.
The new pack dropped today. It's taken so much in me
Mhm.
just to not spend money because I want more cards.
Yeah.
I just want more cards.
I was like, what's $20? What's $20? Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pace myself because there is only 68 new cards.
Yeah.
So like we're gonna get them pretty quickly. But yeah, that's kind of the only other thing I've been playing.
Okay.
I dip in and out of a mobile game called Retro Bowl, which is a football. You should play it. It's an incredible like Tecmo Bowl style football game, and
Okay.
it is so good. My wife just saying in the chat, $20 is news to me. I did not spend $20. I said, what is $20?
That's a great point. That's a great point. Nina in the chat keeping you honest. We love to see it.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, last week, as we've said, was the Game Awards. What many say is the biggest night in gaming, and last week certainly lived up to the name in terms of all sorts of huge announcements. We're going to get to the announcements, but I think it makes sense to start with the winners. Let's give the flowers to the games that won. So I'm going to go through and read games and or categories and what won them. I'm just going to go through all of them real fast, and then we'll recap kind of what stuck out to us. What were there any snubs that we felt, anything that we were excited to see win? So I'm going to go from the bottom up. So best esports game went to League of Legends. Content creator of the year went to someone called Queso. Congrats.
Queso apparently is like fairly well known. I don't know him.
Never heard of him. But hey, I think it sounds like that's a me problem, not a Queso problem.
It's always a me problem on these. Yeah. I never know them.
Most anticipated game, GTA 6. Best adaptation, Fallout on Amazon Prime. Best multiplayer game, Helldivers 2. Best sports/racing game, EA Sports FC 25. Best sim/strategy game, Frostpunk 2. Best family game, the single player game, Astrobot. Best fighting game, Tekken 8. Best RPG, Metaphor ReFantazio. Best action adventure game, Astrobot. Best action game, Black Myth Wukong. Best VR/AR game, Batman Arkham Shadow. Best mobile game, Balatro. Best debut indie game and best indie game, Balatro.
Mm-hmm.
Best community support, Baldur's Gate 3. Best ongoing game, Helldivers 2. Games for Impact went to Neva. Innovation for accessibility was Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Best performance went to Melina Jurgens for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Best score and music was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Art direction was I'll do a two for here. Art direction and narrative went to Metaphor ReFantazio, and then best game direction and game of the year both went to Astrobot, continuing the pattern that we discussed about when I think Cognitive was on, when we predicted the winners, where it keeps flip-flopping, where one year a game wins both of the kind of the big awards, the next year it flip-flops and it splits with somebody. So last year was Baldur's Gate and Alan Wake 2, this year both Astrobot. So next year, take a hint, folks, if the pattern continues. We already have a clue. But Eric, throwing to you, that I just read a lot of games, a lot of categories, but what kind of stuck out to you from whether it was like the run of show about the award winners, or who took home awards?
I always hate, and everyone will say this, is like when they're just like, all right, I'm on the stage, I'm gonna read off 6 winners in a row, and I'm like, why? Like, we don't need to do that. That always annoys me because
it's a bit tacky.
Because I was watching it with my wife, and I think Metaphor won 3 awards. They won 3 awards. They won best art direction, best narrative, and best RPG. They were on stage for one of those.
Yeah.
And all of those are pretty big awards.
Pretty
Those
big
aren't
awards.
just like the like on the Oscars, right? When they like there's like millions of awards, so they have to have some small. That's like art direction and narrative. Like those are fairly
two of the
big.
biggest pieces of a video game.
Right. And I was like, this is their first time on the stage, and I was like, this is one of the biggest games of the year. This is a game nominated for game of the year, and this is the third time they've won. This is the first time they're on the stage, and I was like, that's such a bummer, because they do it better on the pre-show. You know,
Yeah.
Sydney Goodman's on there, and she announces some of their awards, and like Tekken 8 won, and the guy came up. They weren't on the main stage; they were on the stage where Sydney stands, and I was like, why don't they do that? Like, have them come up. You have a minute. It's like, sure, if you want to rush them, you have a minute and then do it like that.
There's like this weird, I don't know, there's like this weird dissonance where I like what you're saying about the pre-show, but then there's also like the weird, from my perspective, there's this weird, like, because they were told ahead of time, because they're just standing right off stage or right off camera, that there's never that like excitement that they just won a game award, it seems. So but I feel like there's got to be a happy medium where like we get rid of the Jeff going through 5 awards back to back to where that section's over. It's like, I don't even know who just won awards, because you just said so many names, like what I just did. I read off the entire list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand, like, as a general thought, I think this was the best that they have done it to date.
No, yeah, this was a great show. I really enjoyed this show. Commercials weren't overly done.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty big on hating commercials, but I was like, obviously you gotta do what you gotta do. So there's a lot of ads. I did have. So are you a Final Fantasy guy?
Yes and no. I like the franchise. I'm not a huge fan of the franchise. I've played all of the most recent ones, but I didn't grow up with a PlayStation, so I didn't play 7 when it first came out. So I go back and forth.
So that's my question. So Rebirth obviously won best score in music, and that was the only one I had beef with. I obviously haven't played it, but maybe somebody in the chat. Is it new music, or is it like redone Final Fantasy VII music? Because that's where I had my beef, is like, if this is redone music, then it should have like defaulted to Metaphor, which is like
fair
music.
To my understanding, there is a lot of new orchestrations. It is, you know, it's the same original battle theme. It's the same like original, like Tifa's theme is not different. Like those kinds of things are the same. But to my understanding, there's a lot of new music, because also there's a lot of new areas in the game, and like new, but there is a weird kind of debate of like, it does. I feel like it made sense that it only went home, I think, with that one award.
It only went home with that one. And they had the most nominations, and they went with one.
Yeah, I feel like they're gonna win more with like some of the big websites where they do their own game.
Well,
like the IGN
they basically swept in Golden Joystick. It was crazy.
That's right. Remind me, is Golden Joystick the one that is
100% fan voted?
Yeah, 100%.
And it was a mess. Game of the year was Black Myth Wukong, and I was like,
God.
I was like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the one that stood out to me. I was like, Metaphor not winning music when like they have probably the best battle music, and it's just like a banger, and it's just the basic battle music, and it's like that was tough.
I do agree. I predicted that Rebirth would get it. That was more a brain pick than a heart pick, but I do, especially with how much I played Metaphor over the weekend, several times I was like, how did this not win best score in music, for sure? Because the music in that game is so fucking good. It came in the chat saying that I robbed him and that I'm a cheater.
Oh.
What I hadn't revealed yet is that the final count for the predictions. So Cog was on a few weeks back and came in, also sent in his predictions. And then as we were going through the show, Maury made his predictions like right before each of the awards. The final count ended up being myself and Cayman with 15 correct. Jordan doing much better than he did last year with 11. And then Maury with 14. Maury is demanding a recount because there was a moment where he tried to switch a prediction like the second before the announcement went. The jury is still out. We haven't decided if we're going to give him that. So maybe it's a 3-way tie for first. But I don't know why Cayman says that I'm robbing him here, but him and I are sharing the number one spot this year, because I think last year he completely destroyed us in this.
Yeah,
in this prediction.
I did pretty good on my predictions, I think, aside from like, because like when I was really like watching, I submitted my picks a while ago, and basically everything was Metaphor that Metaphor was nominated for.
Yeah,
But I was watching it, I was like, Astrobot's gonna win.
Yeah.
Astrobot, like it was a clean sweep, like Baldur's Gate 3 last year, where it was just like there's no way that Baldur's Gate isn't gonna win Game of the Year, because it was just dominating everything.
And I'll be honest, I think it's pretty deserved. But at kind of a bigger point, I think it's so exciting that a game like a 3D platformer can win Game of the Year. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
obviously it
stoked.
takes, like, it's so cool. I feel like it really kind of resets what's possible at the Game Awards. Like, honestly, I was hopeful that Balatro would win, which is what Cayman had predicted, because I was like, give it to an indie single dev poker game. Like,
that guy wasn't even there. Like,
that would have not been very good if they had
won. He
wasn't there.
I love it. He doesn't give a shit about the awards. He was just like, nope, I'm not gonna be there. He literally, like, his speech that he gave his like rep was to be like, give it to somebody else. Like, I don't want it. And I was like, incredible.
I did have a really cool moment though when they won their first award and the PR team went up, and Wout was the one that I was like, oh, I've emailed with Wout before. Like,
wow, that's cool.
Like, that's really cool. I was like, I actually know someone, via email on the stage of the Game Awards.
That's so cool.
I was like, oh, this is really cool. I feel validated in some way.
No,
that was cool.
That's super cool.
But yeah, overall, I feel like from the winner's perspective, like I think this was the best that it's been.
Yeah.
But I challenge Jeff, because I know he's watching. He's in the chat right now, I believe. I hope that they just give a little bit more, because like we're about to go through the announcements. And while this was, I think, by far the best year of announcements as well in the 10 years that they've done it, there's a handful of games that we didn't need here. And like, I understand that like this show is put together over the course of a year. Maybe some of these deals have been in the works for more than a year. I don't know the way that the cookie is made.
Well, I think a lot of these are like funding like big chunks of the Game Awards.
For sure.
That AI Catly game.
Yeah, like, that's a really good point.
Absolutely was like a crypto scam game.
That's a really good point.
Funding half of the Game Awards. It's like, hey, if I have to put up with that shit to get some of the announcements we got, I'll take it. It's fine.
For sure.
Because I need a bathroom break, so it's fine.
It's true.
It's
true, but I wish that maybe we leave in the folks that are paying the bills, but we take out a couple of the littler ones that maybe could have been commercials, so that we give a little bit more time for like Metaphor to be on stage more. And like those, I feel like right now it's like 95% there. I feel like it can be tweaked just a little bit more to honor the games that we're here to celebrate more.
I just had a thought of how they could do it. You watch sports.
I do.
I'm slowly. I forgot to make this joke, but I'm going to take this show over and just make it a Broncos podcast.
Yeah,
between me and you.
Let's ride.
Yeah. Don't say that. No.
Come on. Bring back Russ.
No, absolutely not. We have the first winning record since 2016. Let's not get into that. But you know how they do those, like, oh, we'll be back in 30 seconds, and the game's still going, but the ad's over in the bottom.
Yeah.
They could run those for 15 seconds while the people are walking up to the stage, and then get into that. Maybe that's somewhere they could do that. Obviously not for the big ones where they're playing the music and everything like that, but like maybe for those smaller ones, that's how they can get them on stage, where you're doing an ad for 15 seconds while they walk up there and get situated, and then they go back, and it's like I feel like that might be a way to do it.
I think you're onto something there. I like that a lot, because you can't, for the really big awards, do the thing like they do in the pre-show where they tell the people ahead of time, like, hey, Sam, like, you're going to win best direction for Alan Wake. So just like be ready to jump on stage. Like those ones, they've got to have the walk up and that kind of thing. So I like it. Also, Jeff Healy confirmed in the chat under the name Jake Twitchin right now. So Jeff's going to get on that. So thanks for being here, Jeff. Also, we got some clarity from the Dumpster Boy. He says, I'm a cheater because technically he should have won because Metaphor should have won, and that's who he voted. So you know what? On a technicality, I'll allow it.
You know what? I'll bow down to Astro Boy just because it's just more accessible for the layman person to get into. But you do have to own a PS5, whereas Metaphor is multi-platform.
That's true.
So there is that. But yeah, I'm totally fine with it, and we're gonna get into this a little bit. There's some games on here that I've like that were announced, like sequels that I've never played, but I'm just happy that they exist because like as somebody, so you did say last year or this year was like the best for announcements. I just have to disagree because last year they announced that they're making a new Jet Set Radio, which made me lose my mind. I literally screamed and almost like fell on my dog. Like it was crazy. And shout out to you, Cayman. My Dreamcast is right here on screen for you. I pulled it out of my closet.
Spotlight.
I got a little light on there for you. That was that was crazy to me. Like I never thought that was going to happen. And because I'm a long-suffering Jet Set Radio fan, that's why I'm so excited about some of the announcements that happened tonight.
Hell yeah. Well, let's get into
last week. Yeah.
So I figure instead of doing what I just did, where I read through everything, we're going to go one at a time. Mm-hmm. And the way that we kind of recap shows here at Spotlight Games, if this is your first time watching or listening, I'll read it off. And if either of us wants to say something, we'll jump in. Otherwise, I'll just go on to the next item. There are a few that we know we're going to talk about, but there might be some that, and spur of the moment, you know what? I want to talk about this. So we'll start with the pre-show, which I think we'll probably skate through most of these, but there are a few.
There was at least one that I was like shocked
for sure. So it started out with Ninja Gaiden Rage Bound, which is really cool. Yeah. Like I liked OG Ninja Gaiden. I don't know that I'll play this game, but it's cool that they're bringing Ninja Gaiden.
And that developer never misses. Yeah. Like the River
I've
City
heard
Girls
that
developer,
is really good.
Yeah, they never miss.
Hell yeah. After that was One Move Away, which looks kind of like an unpacking VR game, which they confirmed is not VR, which is like, why did you make it look like it's a VR game, which is strange. After that, what I popped for the most in the pre-show was Slay the Spire 2. We had already seen Slay the Spire 2, so there wasn't a lot of new here other than we got a 2025 early access kind of window. Cool. Yeah. So excited about that. After that, we got some Dave the Diver in the Jungle DLC, which I thought was a missed opportunity to not play Welcome to the Jungle, but maybe that was a bit too expensive for the Dave the Diver team. After that was Thick as Thieves from Warren Spector, who is the Deus Ex original creator.
This game looked that'll die quickly. That's the vibe it gives me.
It was one of those things where, like, as I'm watching the trailer, I was like, this looks like it could be cool, and then I'm like, oh, this is actually going to be dead within 60 seconds once it launches.
Yep.
After that, which is one that I think you're going to be interested to talk about, Shadow Labyrinth, which was a little Pac-Man spooky something.
Yeah. So I had no idea about this, but like I was like, what the hell is this? And then like it clicked. There's a scene on this trailer where it shows like little dots, and I was like, oh my god, it's a Pac-Man like horror like hellscape of a Metroidvania. And apparently I was watching back, I watched Jesse Cox's live stream, and apparently this is just like the secret levels thing on Amazon Prime. This is the story that they gave for Pac-Man. And I had no idea. I haven't watched those yet, but I was like, whoever thought of this is a literal genius. Like this this concept is crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where if you had put me in a room and said, come up with 1,000 game ideas, I never would have gotten to this. But when you see it in action, especially if you're watching the video version with the B-roll, it's like, oh, this looks really fucking cool. Also, quick pause. There's something in the chat that I missed that I want to address. High Score Weekly said, back in 2020/2021, Jerica and I from JK Games, shout out Jerica, were on a Game Awards committee and went on multiple group Zoom calls with Jeff. It was kind of interesting on the back end. It does take like the entire year to land some of the announcements deals, and he likes to physically travel to the studios to see and play them. That's really fucking cool. I didn't know that you guys did that.
Apparently
that's awesome.
Jake Twitchin was too.
Well, there you go. Jake Twitchin, who is also Jeff
people in the chat. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Also, he ran the meetings.
Right. After that was a game called Steel Paws, which I don't even remember what it is. We saw Tales of the Shire again, or from the Shire. There's something about Tales in the Shire. Midnight Murder Club from Velen Studios, which is a party multiplayer game, which I probably won't play, but looks kind of fun.
I thought that looked really interesting. It reminded me of this old game. Like, I love different takes on shooters. There's this game I bought on Switch like really early on when there was like nothing on Switch, called Screen Cheat. and like it's a shooter in the style of like N64 James Bond, and everyone is invisible, but you can see where they are.
That's
because
cool.
every single room is like color coordinated. So you're in the red section, blue section, green section, yellow section, and you have to look at everybody's screens to see where they are.
It's
So
kind of
you have to
crazy.
screen sheet to win, and it's like one of the most unique shooters I've ever played.
That's
And like
actually, it
that's
sounds like
what
a
this
really cool
reminded me of.
concept.
It's like you go in with a flashlight and a bullet, and it's like that's it. And I was like, love that. That's great.
That sounds pretty dope.
Yeah.
After that, if Kayla is still in the chat, I know she popped for this Kiora, which is like a Terraria like up to 8-player co-op game, which in the moment, this and the next one actually in the moment didn't really do much for me, but as I revisited them, like, oh, this actually looks like it could be pretty dope. And the next one being Rematch from the developers of Sifu.
Yeah.
As that came on, I was like, me and Maury both were like, what is this? I don't think this is the vibe. But rewatching the trailer and like thinking about it a little more, I'm like, this game could actually be pretty fucking dope. What did you think about this one?
So one of the things is like I try to, we'll go into this a little bit. I try to like call out like what a game is like right away when there's like a split second. And I was like, soccer. And then he walked out, I was like, oh, I was right, it was a soccer game. Because it gave me the vibe of in Pokemon Sword and Shield when you first like walk out into
yeah.
So but I was like, okay, so it's Rocket League with people.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't think I've ever played a sports game where you play as one character. Like all sports games, you have to you can switch around, right? And I was like, if it's Sifu, it's the Sifu developers, and they're gonna make it crazy, right? Like they're gonna make it so cool. And I'm like, I'm interested. Like Sifu is one of the most unique fighting like combat games I've ever seen. And I'm interested because like soccer is a really cool sport and it's super popular, but like I've never gotten into FIFA, but like something like this, cool.
Sure. It's so funny to me. It's like it has green flags and red flags to me as I watch it. Like growing up, like I was a soccer kid growing up. I coached for like a decade. Like soccer is one of my favorite things in the world. And when I look at this as a soccer game, it looks so fucking clunky. Like the way they're running and the way they're kicking the ball, it feels like and looks really robotic. But then like you bring in the arcade style and like you see the keeper in the box batting down a ball on offense, like there and like obviously playing off the walls, and it has that kind of Rocket League feel to it. I think this game has the potential to hit, but there's like just a few little things where like it just doesn't look like it is a smooth game, which I think could be a huge deterrent of it.
I think if the developers can make it so that like every interaction you have with another player is like a little mini fighting game. I think that's the way it'll be like, oh, this is legit.
I'm really interested to see how much they put their own spin on it versus we're just making an arcade soccer game, which there could be a market for just an arcade soccer game. But
speaking of long dead franchises, NBA Street, NFL Street,
bring them back.
Dying for those to come back.
Yeah. So hey, this could be a way to kind of start bringing back the extreme, basic sports games. And then the final thing from the pre-show was a game called Solasta 2, which looks like a shittier Diablo to me, respectfully.
It looked like Baldur's Gate to me.
Oh, you're right. I'm thinking of a different game. It had more of a Baldur's Gate feel. You're right.
Yeah, and I'm interested because I think the first game was fairly good. I don't like. I'm interested just if it's if it's half as good as Baldur's Gate, like it's worth a shot at least, right? Because Baldur's Gate is a masterpiece.
Hell yeah. And then we were on to the main show, and boy, did they come out swinging. First reveal was, which is still so strange to me because they just announced they were in full development last week or 2 weeks ago now. The Witcher 4 got a 6-minute trailer. Obviously, all of this is completely cinematic. There's not an ounce of actual gameplay in this, but it looked to me incredible. My first question, 2 questions for you. One, what did you think of this trailer? And 2, when do you think this could come out?
So I am not. I like The Witcher. I like the idea. I've tried playing these games and just like bounced off of them multiple times. I think they're really cool though. I really enjoyed the first like season of the show.
Yeah.
And I think this probably won't come out until like the PS6 comes out. Like, like it feels like something that will just continue to get delayed unless they've really learned their lesson from Cyberpunk. This feels like, I guess they do also have the inner workings already, right? Because they've already
Sure.
made Witcher games in the past, but this feels like 2027, 2028, written all over it.
Yeah, I scrubbed to the end to see if it said any consoles, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I will be so deeply shocked if this comes out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X.
Yeah.
This honestly looks like Jake in the chat says. I'm sure it'll be before 2030, but and he says it'll also launch in a really good state, which is funny because CD Projekt Red games never launch in a good state. But I'm
Right.
looking at like 29 for this game.
Yeah.
I just don't buy that this game could come. I hope it comes earlier, but this looks like it's so far away to me.
Yeah. And I think that's fine, right? Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
It's this is one of those studios that has like the, they have the goodwill back, right? They had to earn
For
it,
sure.
but they have it to take their time.
And I bet, like Jake in the chat making the joke that it'll launch in a poor state, I feel like I could see this actually launching in a good state. And the reason it does is because they hold it until like 28, 29, because they want to make sure that it actually comes out playable. Because even a lot of people don't remember, even The Witcher 3 came out not as bad as Cyberpunk, because very few things come out as bad as Cyberpunk, but that game launched pretty shittily too.
Yeah. Yeah. High Score Weekly in the chat talking about I won't be tricked again. I'm like, yeah. There's a game we'll talk about here that made me like, I've been tricked by FromSoft once because I bought Sekiro after like falling in love with Bloodborne and Dark Souls, and like Sekiro is a good game, but I just like, this was not what I wanted kind of thing.
Sure.
And so that's why I didn't buy Elden Ring for a couple months after it came out. And
well, the next announcement is Elden Ring Night.
Oh, look at that transition. I'm a professional.
Look at that. God, you were born to be on the mic. This is an action co-op survival game set in the world of Elden Ring. It's in a parallel universe, apparently.
Yeah.
And you get to choose between one of 8 characters, and it's you either play solo with I don't remember. Is it 2 AI? Do you remember? Or it's a group of 3?
Yeah, it's solo by yourself, like completely solo.
Oh, I see.
Or it's not up to 3. It's 1 or 3. You cannot do duos. We found that out today. There for whatever reason.
Yeah, what a weird thing.
I think it's just because they made it easier scaling. It's like there's only one version of multiplayer, right? It's like 3 people. And I think there's ways of doing like the rando stuff, but yeah, this was crazy. When it comes up, so obviously I clocked it as like some kind of Elden Ring, some kind of, and then I was like, why is that guy running so fast? I'm talking over the B-roll right now. And then like everyone's the movement's different. They basically have Sekiro movement. The world is Elden Ring. They have like crazy special abilities. And then like this was all cool and everything. And then there's a quick glimpse of the Firekeeper from Dark Souls 3, which is about to happen, I'm pretty sure, on screen. I was losing my mind. My wife was like just laughing at me because I was like screaming.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what is happening? I was like, is that the Firekeeper? Like, that was one of my things that I missed the most from Elden Ring, in Elden Ring, was that we didn't have a Firekeeper. This person on screen right now. We had Melina, but she's not really involved too much with us. We didn't have the Firekeeper or the doll from Bloodborne.
That's cool. I didn't realize that they were bringing in other franchises into.
Okay, so yeah, that's another thing. In a second on screen, we're going to see one of the hardest bosses from Dark Souls 3. Probably the hardest boss from Dark Souls 3 is the Nameless King right there.
Oh, cool.
When he come up, I was like, that's the fucking Nameless King. Like that's his Drake. That's him. I was like, why is he here? And then today they confirmed, yes, there are Dark Souls characters. And this really thing cool. Right here is a Dark Souls character as well. That crazy, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's from Dark Souls 2. But yeah, I was like, this is insane. And then that looked like a new character. This is a new, so like, this is going to be incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, literally high score weekly. Everyone is here. Everyone is here.
That's really cool. I didn't realize that. And yeah, I'm hoping we've said like you're gonna be my Sherpa next year.
Yeah.
I want one of my biggest like FOMO moments of the last several years was just not getting Elden Ring. And the reason, I say I don't get it, I'm just not good enough. And I didn't have the patience to try
So
to figure out how to get good.
this might be your entry point, honestly. Like there's a play test in February, and I think this could be, because it's very broken down, because each character, you select a character, you don't build a character. There's like classes that you choose, and then throughout the game, it's broken down into basically one run is like an hour.
Okay.
And like it's 3 days, and at the end of each day you fight a boss. And it's basically like that blue fire is like encompassing you, and at the zone that you're in gets smaller and smaller, kind of like Fortnite.
Oh.
And then you fight a boss, and then the day resets, and you're
Huh.
in. And then at the end, apparently, if you beat all the other bosses, you fight the Night Lord to stop the night rain.
Huh.
And so, hey, it sounds
That's pretty
dope.
cool.
Yeah,
I hope that they sell shoes just like Fortnite does, so we can put our Elden Lord and some Air Jordans. That would be pretty.
There's mods for that, I'm sure.
I'm sure there
you
are.
can play as like 2B in Elden Ring if you want, from near. You can put all kinds of stuff in there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after Night Rain, we had a little bit of a lull, but not very long. We had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to PC in January. We had that weird, fucking crazy looking AI looking game, Catly.
Yeah.
And then we had one of the biggest surprises of the night, Untitled Project Robot from Gen Design, which is Ueda-san, who did The Last Guardian and Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. So it was one of those, like, at first I was like, this can't be. Let's see, where is that?
Yeah.
There it is. I was like, this can't be. And then they started showing. I was like, oh no, this is legit.
This is honestly, I did, but like High Score Weekly talked about, I did not like The Last Guardian at all.
Fair.
And I was not cognizant of like good video game storytelling and environment and all that stuff when Eco and Shadow of the Colossus came out, so I never played those. And so I was like, oh, this is my chance. The Last Guardian's coming out. This is great. I'm gonna hop in day one. Hated it. And so
I also did not love The Last Guardian.
Yeah, but if this does not have a dog that behaves worse than my dog, I'll probably play it. And I'm very interested because it's no longer fantasy. This is clearly like some kind of sci-fi
for sure
setting, which they've never done before. So I think this is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I've also never played Eco. It's one of those, like, there's a lot of
it's not very available.
Right. So. Well, right. It's one of those old PlayStation franchises that I just never really got my hands on, because the first time I played Shadow of the Colossus, I played it a little bit in high school. When a few weeks ago I talked about borrowing a friend's PS2 in high school, but I played it the whole thing when it was re-released. And so it's one of those games where, like, I'm kind of toying with trying to figure out a way to stream it as like going back and like, what are the big games that I've missed in my gaming history. So I definitely want to try to play Eco before this comes out, which who fucking knows when this is coming out.
It's not gonna. The Last Guardian took 12 years to come out, prior to the bloat of development time that we have now. So like, who knows when that's going to come out?
Yeah. Jake Twitchin in the chat says, call it now, hosts. Is this game connected to Shadow of the Colossus or not? I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
There's
going to be some crazy twist, and like these mechs are going to turn into the Colossi. And
for sure,
this will be the prequel to the prequel, right? Because the Eco is technically later in the timeline than, I don't know where the Last Guardian falls into. I feel like that one's the least obvious. But yeah, that seems like High Score Weekly. This will be on the PS7. Yeah, like unless they really hunker down, and like, I think honestly though, if they don't have an AI companion that is like as big and clunky as Trico, I think they'll be fine. Because I think that was the main issue, was that they had this hyper like complicated AI on this giant dog thing that never fucking listened. Like,
well, knowing Ueda-san, it's going to be that the thing you just climbed also becomes your companion, and it is now a skyscraper-sized robot that
well, it
is
looks like
going
it's got
around
its
the world
head
with you.
taken off, so I don't know about that, but
Yeah,
we'll
that's fair.
see.
That's fair. Maybe there's another one. After that, we got the Outer Worlds 2, which is one of those things where it's like, oh, cool, I'll play
Yeah.
this. I wasn't yearning
Hilarious
for
trailer.
another
Thought it
one.
was really funny
Yeah.
that they were like from the creators of 2, and then they did Fallout. They did Fallout 3, 2, New
Yeah.
Vegas. Like, it's
Right.
so
Yeah.
funny. I was like, this is great. I love that.
Yeah, you can always expect Obsidian to
Oh yeah.
kill with the jokes. After that was one of my favorite sections of the show, just because Joseph Ferris is a fucking maniac. He's like, we got good shit. You're gonna love our shit.
Yeah, I'm
He
starting to turn
showed
the
us,
corner with him. Like, at
yeah,
first I was like, I felt like I never played Take-Two, but I remember it was up against a very stacked competition, and I
yeah,
felt like he was handed the game awards because like he's best buds with
sure,
Jeff Keighley, and I was like, that rubbed me the wrong way. But I'm turning around on
yeah.
him. He's just a eccentric guy who
He,
shows up once a year,
yeah,
curses a lot, and then leaves for another year. Like,
yeah. But he showed off Split Fiction, which I meant to grab B-roll for this, but I didn't. But I'm very excited for this.
it seems cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't as big on It Takes Two as Cayman, who famously predicted that it would win Game of the Year that year. But I am really excited for this game. It looks like it could go to really cool heights. And then hearing the press talk about having played it the week prior, of like, it is actually better than it looked. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Um, After Split Fiction, we got Black Frost: The Long Dark 2, which is a game at first I was excited about until I learned that it's a survival game. It's like,
Oh,
oh,
interesting. So yeah, so I bought a long time ago. Like, I just recently in August bought my first PC, like, since I was like in high school, and I like was a Mac player for the longest time, but basically just for creative purposes. But every once in a while there'd be a game on there, and I played The Long Dark like when it came out, the
oh
original one.
wow.
And I remember like probably like 10 years ago playing that game. And the fact that it's finally getting like a sequel is really cool to me. And I'm like, all right, I remember this being a really cool survival game that I enjoyed.
Yeah,
So it's not too bad. It's not about crafting as much and like building stuff. It's about moving
sure.
from like environment to environment, from what I remember, which is what
Okay.
they showed, right? You're going from
Yeah.
shelter to shelter. It's not like, oh, I got to dig and build. It's like you're scavenging, which is cool. I think that's
Okay.
my favorite kind of like survival, is like you're not terraforming the world.
Yeah.
You're in a shit situation and you're trying to find like, okay, here's a can of dog food. I guess this is what I'm going to eat today.
Well, that does turn me back around a little bit, because there's like the art style I love. I love the direct,
Mhm,
like watching it, it's like, oh, this is a Patrick game for sure. And then I
mhm.
hear that it's part of the Long Dark, and it's like, oh, it's going to be survival. I don't like
Yeah.
survival that much.
It
So
looks
that
co-op too.
it does. It does. After that, I jumping ahead a little bit, one of our audience write-ins, Cognitive, was very high on this next announcement. Borderlands 4. I'm interested in what you thought. I thought this looked pretty not good to me.
Borderlands 2 is the peak of Borderlands, and they should have just stopped.
Sure.
Basically, like they're realizing. I read a thing today where Borderlands 3 apparently was the peak of their toilet humor, and they're going to
Oh,
pull back on that.
good.
And a lot of the discussion that I saw of that article was the fact that Borderlands 2 is terribly written, but Handsome Jack is such a top tier villain
Sure.
that he just carried the whole game. Like, and it's true. Like, that game is carried by its villain. And, Borderlands 3 is like, yeah, it was so forgettable. I
Yeah.
like, the only reason I even bought it was because ProZD was the voice of one of the characters. And I was
Oh,
like,
cool.
yeah, I want to support that guy, as he like now he's in like tons of things, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, great, love him.
Yeah.
But like I literally was like, this is nothing to me.
Yeah, I never even got around to Borderlands 3, because just like the way it looked and the way people were talking about it, and like came in, played it, and he's like, it's fine. Like, you
Yeah.
really don't need to play it. So it's like,
The shooting feels awful too. That's the
I
thing.
hope that this game convinces me in its, lead up to, because I want to like Borderlands again.
Mhm.
But it's also just, I don't know, it's really hard to support a franchise that is run by Randy fucking Pitchford. That dude is such a
Yeah.
scumbag. It's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, take him out of the situation and maybe I will be
Maybe,
higher
yeah.
on it. But
Manuel VR, which I think is my cousin.
oh hell yeah.
He said, directors said there will be no Skibbity in Borderlands 4. Bullshit. There's
Bullshit.
no way, because like that game always has memes in it. There is no way Skibbity Toilet is not going to be a gun in that game.
Which
like,
I still don't understand what that means, and I don't think I want to.
we're not supposed to. I
Good.
don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. After that, we got Clive from Final Fantasy 16 coming to Tekken 8 this
Love
month.
it. I love guest characters in fighting games.
Hell yeah.
I'm not like, I am a fighting game observer. I love fighting games. I'm very bad at them. So, but anytime there's like new fighting games that come out, I'm hyped. I love them. But I'm just terrible at them. So like anytime there's guest characters like this, love it. It's like one of my favorite things.
Love that. After that, we got a Splitgate 2 trailer, which is coming next year, and it's going to be on all platforms. Well, probably not Switch, but PC, PS5, and Xbox, which I think will serve that game with a bigger audience. And then after that, we got Virtua Fighter coming back, which is one of the things that stood out to you from the presentation.
Yes. So as I was just saying about Tekken, right? And long dead franchises. That's the theme of my picks. This was a long dead franchise, and this is one of the coolest like, to sum up Virtua Fighter, to differentiate it from so many other fighter games. Usually the character on the cover or the character that they advertise the most is the easy character to play, right? Like Ryu or whatever, or
Sub-Zero
like
or
Sub-Zero or something like that. I believe his name is Akira from Virtua Fighter. He is the character that he is the poster child. He is the main character. He is the hardest character to play as in the entire game.
That is,
and they did that on purpose. And like, if you've ever seen, so Tekken is very cool. And it's like very like, but like, it's very like flamboyant and crazy, and you're like launching people. Virtua Fighter looks like real people beating the ever loving hell out of each other. And it is so cool to watch. So I'm just like so excited as a casual fighting game fan to watch Evo with new Virtua Fighter. Like, it's going to be insane. Like, look at this they are like just smacking each other. Like, it is crazy.
I do like that we don't see a lot of just like straight realism in fighting games. That is a cool aspect for sure.
Because it's part of the Virtua stuff, right? Shout out Sega. Like, it's called Virtua because it's like virtual, but it's all also like hyper realistic for the most part. Like, they lean into the realism, like Virtua Racer, Virtua Tennis, Virtua Fighter. Like, these are all games that they're simulations. So like, yeah, it's kind of cartoony and crazy, but like for the most part, they're just throwing hands. Like, that's it.
After that was, of the RGG studio announcements, the one that I popped for more, but I didn't get B-roll for, Project Century. It's in 1915 Japan. It was mostly just vibes, but it's looking more like a Yakuza type game.
That thing was bloody, man. I was like, oh, this is for sure a Yakuza game. And then like, he stabbed somebody, because I played my first Yakuza game last year. I didn't beat it, but I played Like a Dragon. And like, I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, it's a Yakuza game set in the past. They do that all the time. They've done that in life. They do, like feudal Japan, and then they transplant the characters and they play new characters. And I was like, oh, cool. It's one of those. And then the guy stabbed somebody in the neck and like a pint of blood shot out. And I was like, this is not a Yakuza game.
I was wondering at first if it was going to be like a prequel type game, because they're only calling it Project Century. But you're right. It is a very different aesthetic and vibe with it being
Project
so
Century thing piqued my brain a little bit, because what if it's you playing for a century?
Oh,
what if you're playing like each story chapter is like 10 years and then you catch up?
That could be cool.
That would be, I love games like that. I think
that would be really cool,
because it allows you to like get attached to all these different characters in the long story and everything. That's why JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is like so popular, right? It's like,
that makes sense.
It's like 100-year story at this point.
After that, another long dead franchise coming back. That is the theme of the night. Turok Origins, a franchise. Honestly, of all of them that came back this year, this is, I think, the one that I least expected would come back. It just feels very late 90s to me.
It always feels like it's floating around. Well, there was a Turok game back in the mid 2000s that I loved.
Oh, I don't think I knew.
Yeah, on the 360. I loved that thing. because I was like a Game Pass kid. Like I
Mhm.
would go to Blockbuster, I would just pick
Oh, yeah.
whatever I thought was
The
cool to play
OG
that
Game
for the
Pass.
weekend. Yeah. And Turok was one of those games, and I loved it. I love dinosaurs. Who doesn't love dinosaurs? I have 2
Sure.
Godzilla posters behind me. Like I just love big monsters. And like I'm just intrigued what this is, right? If
Yeah.
this is a co-op, and they're like using the old logo too, which is like great. Love
Yeah.
that. And it looks pretty cool. Like if it's a co-op shooter where you fight dinosaurs, like
It feels
I'm
very
game.
PvE, like in an arena
Mhm.
surviving against dinosaurs, which could be really cool.
I love any kind of PvE stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big multiplayer like competitive. So, but I can figure out a computer. Like I'm
Yeah.
cool with that.
And it same folks that did Space Marine earlier this year. So
Oh,
I feel
really?
like I'm pretty
Sick.
sure it's Saber. So maybe it's a different studio or like a different team or whatever, but it feels like they're kind of finding that niche in that like double
Mhm.
A kind of space. So excited to see
Double
how
A is
that.
where it's at, man. That's the
Yeah, man.
future. Like
Um,
indie is the backbone, but like these double A games, like if they can come out at a regular click, that's where all
for
the
sure.
money is going to be.
For sure, I agree. Yeah, it came in not too long ago, was on the show pitching. That's what could save the game industry with how many fucking layoffs we're always having. Like,
Mhm.
let's invest in those like mid-tier titles again.
Yep.
Um, After that, we have a few we can burn through here, except there's one really big one here in a couple. So we had Helldivers 2 Shadow drop some new content. They have a
Right.
new faction of enemies, which is cool. Pal World getting a new expansion next month. And then my biggest pop of the night, other than the very last announcement, Onimusha, Way of the Sword. Can't
Yes.
fucking believe
No,
Onimusha
insane.
is back.
Long dead franchise again. Like
Yeah.
that's the name of the Game Awards 2024. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
It's funny. You said like you knew pretty quickly, like once you saw the red orb, that this was Onimusha. It took me a minute, but
Yeah.
I just can't fucking believe it's coming back and from
No.
Capcom.
It was shock. If my wife is still watching, she can confirm this. Like it was before. It was just like they showed ancient Japan, and I was like Onimusha, and I was like, it can't be Onimusha.
It can't
That's
be.
crazy. And then like the most exciting thing about this is for 2 reasons. One, Capcom is on one of the hottest streaks in gaming history
They
right
can't
now.
miss right now.
Yeah, like they since like 2012, I feel like have just been banging out games.
Yeah.
And so also I'm a recent like I've always loved Resident Evil from afar, but with Resident Evil 2, I'm like
Yeah.
all in on Resident Evil. So I'm like, great. If this is anything close to the Resident Evil 2 level, because I liked Resident Evil 4, don't get me wrong, but Resident Evil 2 is like that's my favorite.
I agree.
If it's anything close to that, like great. And then going to what High Score Weekly said, I'm a proponent for more dinosaur games in general. If this gets us Dino Crisis in the future, because like they're starting to revive long dead franchises,
I think it's possible. Like
yeah, it is
because
now.
I guarantee that this is going to be a hit. I guarantee this is going to
Yeah.
sell because people trust Capcom, right?
Mhm.
Like Jake in the chat says the Cap God era, except we don't talk about Exoprimal. But it's like
Yeah.
really that's like the only miss that they've had.
And
They
really,
just keep
did anybody
delivering.
really shit on it?
Not
They
really.
just
It
didn't
just
play it.
yeah.
Like like that was it.
I really think that we are the closest we've ever been to Dino Crisis coming back with
Man,
Onimusha
I would
in 2026.
love Dino Crisis.
Me
Hell,
too.
make it Resident Evil Dino Crisis. Like make
Huh?
it zombie dinosaurs. I don't care. That would
I
be
don't care.
crazy.
Just bring it back.
Yeah.
The next few I think we can burn through. First, Berserker was brought in by the
That
Russo
looks
brothers.
awful.
It looks so bad. And then they were like, and another game in the Dungeon Fighter franchise. I was like, what the fuck is the Dungeon Fighter franchise?
25% of the funding. That's what it
Yes,
is.
you're right. That's exactly right. We saw more of the new Dying Light game. We saw a game that I do think looks cool called Stage Fright. I think it also had a fun
Stage Fight
presentation.
looks really cool.
Of like coming into the audience and Jeff like looking around, like the lights going
Yeah.
out. That was cool. I will definitely be playing Stage Fright. That's from the Overcooked devs. The next kind of chunk was, I think, maybe the only low point of the night for me, and it was pretty short-lived. We got a horrible looking Game of Thrones game, which we have now come to learn is going to be on mobile, which is why it looked so bad.
Yeah. I thought that was
Double
weird that they
Dragon.
didn't announce that it was
I know.
on mobile.
I know. Double Dragon Revive, which didn't look bad per se. I just didn't do anything for me.
For me, I'm just happy again, long dead franchises.
coming
We
back.
got to support them. And it's from, I don't know the dev exactly, but it's from a very popular dev. So I like put my trust in them kind of thing.
Jake in the chat said 2 Russo brothers, but they share one neck.
Yeah, that was weird. And one haircut, apparently. Like
Correct.
the other one had no neck, the other one had a terrible haircut. And I was like, what is
That's really
happening?
fucking
You guys are
funny.
worth millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah,
Like,
and they did not look interested to be there.
no.
After that, we got, I think, a game called Solo Leveling Arise, but I don't remember if that's actually what it's called. But it sounds like it's what it's called.
It was, and it was like I felt like a big spoiler because like Solo Leveling season 1 just ended, and like that, I feel like those were all, unless it's like an alternate dimension. I was like, that feels like a lot of like. I think they showed a main character dying in that, and I was like,
oops.
I was like, that feels like a big spoiler.
Oopsie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that was from something else.
Yeah.
And then after that, another Long Dead franchise called Screamer. Any Screamers in chat?
No.
This is going to be, it's a 1995 racing game that is returning with a like cyberpunk looking style. Looks kind of cool.
That. I love that.
Last of Us 2 coming to PC in April of next year. Den of Wolves, a new co-op heist game.
That's another long, like, gonna be
is it?
quick. No, that's gonna be another Quickly Dead franchise. Sorry,
I thought you were saying Long Dead.
No, that's gonna be a Quick Dead franchise, for like 60 seconds and then never talk about it again.
We saw something from Zenless Zone Zero. Couldn't tell you what. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. We got a little shadow at the Game Awards with a new racing game.
Those, if you've never played a Sonic racing game, go do yourself a favor. They rip. They're so sick. Like, they're so much fun. Like, they're so much better than Mario Kart for sure. They're such a better racer. But
I don't agree with that. However, I did have a lot of fun with the one that was on Vita. I forget which one it was called.
Yeah,
I played a lot of that one.
Those things rip. You can play as fucking, in the All-Stars one, you can play as Beat and Gum from Jet Set Radio. Like, it's game of the year material right there.
After that, for me, the lull picked up. We got Mafia: The Old Country, which looks pretty cool. Setting it in like kind of old world Sicily. And they said that it's going to go a lot more linear, which I think is a smart move for Mafia because their open worlds just don't work like they want them to. So hearing that they're going linear, I think is a cool move. After that, we got a really cool looking Telltale-esque game from former Telltale devs called Dispatch. We saw Aaron Paul, Laura Bailey, stacked cast, Alana Pierce in it. Someone called the Thought Squad is in it. But like the art style looks really cool. You're like this dispatcher for like a hero service. It seems like looks really cool.
It looks, I don't know if I sent you that one, but that is definitely one of my most excited things. I was like, it's it's basically an American visual novel is like the way to look at it. Is like a Western, I should say Western visual novel. And it looks really cool. And like, it looks like they have some management sim elements in it too. And I'm like, okay.
And cool. Like there in the trailer, it showed some of the like game choice in action. Like there's this one scene I didn't capture B-roll, I meant to, but I didn't, of the protagonist at like a vending machine, and they lose the thing, and so like you choose, do you chime in, do you buy another thing from the vending machine? But it just, the way that it just looked so fluid and natural, as opposed to how Telltale games, it's like things kind of freeze often, or like it just looks so clunky.
I think it's a lot of, so I think one thing that if there is mystery involved and you have to figure things out, sure, allow yourself to have to walk around and observe things and whatnot. But like, if you're playing a Telltale game style game, you're just there for the story and the choices. Like, don't make me walk around. Just take me to the next like scenario and like let's go with it from there. So if it's something like that, like I don't want to be walking through the office. Just like take me where you want me to go and let me make the choices.
Yeah, their most recent game, the now I can't think of the franchise. It was a sci-fi show on Amazon that they did with Telltale last year. It was like the best it's ever been from Telltale, but it was still so like you're floating around in space. I'm like, God, this still feels so clunky.
It's so slow.
It's so slow. Yeah. And then the last two announcements of the night, which I think were two of the hypest announcements. The first of which being an Okami sequel with Kamiya-san game directing. another long dead franchise back.
Yep.
So fucking cool.
This is one of those games I've never played that I was talking about. I've
Really?
never played this. I've always heard good things about it. I haven't gotten around to it, but it's like I've heard nothing but good things about this, and I'm just like so happy
Yeah.
for like people that are fans of this. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm more motivated to go play. Cause like that was another thing. I was like, there's no sequel, there's no like anything from this. Do I really want to go play this incredible game and then just be bummed that it's dead? Kind
Sure.
of thing.
Kayla in the chat says it's on sale right now on Steam. So it's only $3 if you want to get it on Steam.
Just let me go.
Pop over real fast.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, I can't vouch that the game holds up today because I've not played it in like a decade. But I remember it came out the same year as Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Came out before it too.
And a lot of people, there's kind of this debate of like, is it the better Zelda game of that year? And I don't know where I fall on that because I do like Twilight Princess a lot. I think it gets a lot of flack and it's a good game. Also, weirdly, you play as a wolf in that game.
Yeah.
But Okami's really good. And there's a lot of really fun, like the side quests, I think are really cool. I remember it working really well on the Wii, weirdly enough, because
that's what it was made for with the like the symbols. By the way, I just bought it.
Oh yeah, well, because it launched on PS2, so originally you were just doing it with the sticks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was re-released on the Wii, and we were like, oh, of course, it feels like this. It should have been on the Wii all along. Because that was also fun gaming lore that I've always obsessed with. When it launched on Wii, the game box, whoever published it just grabbed the picture from IGN's website. So IGN's logo is on the official box art of the game in the bottom corner. Their little watermark on any Wii copy of Okami is the IGN logo. I owned it. I remember being like, wait, what the fuck? Why is the IGN logo on the front? Like usually it's on the back of like, oh, it's a thing from a review or whatever. But so really hyped for Okami. I don't expect to see this for a very long time either. This feels like one of those probably 4 or 5 years away at least.
Yeah,
but because it seems like there's like, oh, by the way, we're making it now. But I hope to be surprised. I hope that this is like
it feels like a game that could be quicker just because it's not as intensive graphics wise.
Sure.
Like it's going to look beautiful, but it's stylized. So it could be quicker.
I do hope that like I already killed the B-roll, but that like art style that they have in the trailer of it being like very watercolory, that's what they were going for back then, but it just didn't translate because it was old. If they go for that now and it like that, it could be like the prettiest game ever for sure. So I'm excited to see where that lands. And then they ended the show with the game that for me has skyrocketed to like my number 1 or 2 most anticipated because I'm a Naughty Dog sicko. Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. We got a cool 4-minute look at this game, and it looks so good. And like there's so many cool little details in the trailer.
The suffering of generations must be endured to achieve our divine end. And then Ancient Sumerian Scripture 1986 was
Ancient sick. 1986 is such a cool fucking opener to this. And it's just like this style is just like in a second it'll pan out a little more and we see this like a moon broken apart and just like the red and the blue. It just looks it has that slick Naughty Dog look. I can't wait for this game. And as the dumpster boy in the chat says, looks incredible, terrible name. I don't believe that this game will stay being called Intergalactic The Heretic.
Yeah, I've heard 2 different things of the title's supposed to be flipped, and it's called it's technically Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, right, or something like that.
Yeah. That's the technically the title.
And I've heard I read a thing that said it's supposed to be called The Heretic Prophet Intergalactic, and I'm like, that's not that much better. So
I think it's a little better though.
Yeah, it's a little better.
But that is an interesting point. I think that Naughty Dog is officially calling it Intergalactic.
Intergalactic is fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And like I get it. Like so what we get from the trailer is that you're playing as a bounty hunter going from galaxy to galaxy looking for in the instance of the trailer, Kumail Nanjiani, whoever he's playing in this game. But it's like I understand calling it Intergalactic, but it's such a mouthful to me. It just doesn't feel like The Last of Us, Uncharted, even Jack and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot. Like they just roll off the tongue, whereas Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, just feels so clunky to me.
I never like Metaphor is my game of the year. I wish it was just called Metaphor and they just left it. Because when you come out with a game for the first time and you give it a subtitle, it's very weird to me because it
Sure.
just sounds like a DLC.
Oh, sure.
That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like, all right, we played Intergalactic, we really liked it. Well, here's Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. Like, it sounds DLC to me. But I'm interested to see where this game goes. Recently found out that it's inspired by Cowboy Bebop, and I'm like, if you could harness that energy, and that vibe, because that's what Cowboy Bebop is. It's a good anime, don't get me wrong. The vibes though are insane.
Immaculate.
Yeah, and if you could harness that and put it into a game, great, love it. But I am concerned that you're stranded on this planet, and that is not Cowboy Bebop vibes.
Sure. It does feel like right now the way, like the given circumstance that they've shown us is something about this planet people apparently don't ever leave when they go there. So it could be that we're on this one planet the whole time, but then why call it intergalactic? So I feel like there will be some hopping between planets in the game at the very least. Because I will say, if we're on a planet that just looks like oh wait, I went back
forest.
too far. If we're on a planet that just looks like a foggy mess the whole time, won't be very excited about that.
That's
but I'm
space.
sure, I'm sure we're going to be going out. I bet Porsche doesn't agree to a partnership without you seeing that logo 95 fucking times throughout the game. So I bet we're going to be flying around that ship. I bet, even if it's just in cinematics, I wouldn't be shocked that we jump around throughout different galaxies.
Manny in the chat saying that he'll wait for the remaster to come out a year after release.
That's really funny and deserved, because Naughty Dog
4
is
years,
so bad about
4
that.
years of Last of Us Part 2, and they're doing a remaster already is crazy.
It's crazy, but I'm the sucker that buys it. I do agree with the Dumpster Boy in the chat saying kind of bummed it isn't a Savage Starlight game. That could be cool, but hey, who's to say that it isn't?
What is a Savage Starlight game?
Savage Starlight is the comic book in the universe of The Last of Us that Ellie reads.
Oh, cool.
And there had been like, gamer rumors, and there might have been some substantiation to that of like press people, but there was some conjecture that maybe that their next franchise would be actually making that into a game.
Maybe it's in this world.
Could be. But yeah, it looks so fucking good. I cannot wait. I also adding this to the pile. They've said it's been in development since 2020. So in theory, it's been in development since for 4 years. But we also have to remember, in that time, they've re-released 2 games and they developed and killed an online multiplayer game of The Last of Us. So I don't know that it's been 4 years of like full development of the game. But so I'm hoping for 2026, but I'm expecting 27 or later personally. But
that sounds about right to me.
They say that it's being developed for the PS5. So maybe it's the swan song like The Last of Us 2 was. Which, who's to say when that's going to be? I would expect we get another few years out of this.
There's no such thing as swan songs anymore.
That's true. That's true.
There's still games coming out on the PS4 right now. Like,
that is true. That is a very good point.
Like the swan song, the last true swan song was The Last of Us on the PS3. Like that was like they cranked every single ounce of graphics and development and everything out of that they could. And that's why it got a remaster so quickly afterwards. Because like, we literally hit our ceiling.
Yeah, we might as well just carry the one and dot PS4. Some quick call outs from the audience submissions of their favorite announcements. Johnny DeCrosta said everything outside of Laura Bailey and Aaron Paul is a blur, referencing Dispatch. Cognitive also said, first of all, there's the Animal Well snubs, RIP. So maybe focus on some real news for once. Thanks, Jordan. But then he also said Borderlands 4, Onimusha, and Okami look incredible in no particular order. Nickery John said Harrison Ford's teleprompter stopping working, Astrobot and Metaphor winning big, and Jeff, as you put it, creaming his leathers were his highlights of
the Harrison Ford like waving away the teleprompter was much better than Al Pacino trying to read it. So I'll take the grumpy old man waving it away because he's Harrison Ford versus like an old man like literally like losing his mind up.
Yeah, for sure. And Jordan also wanted to add shout out to the wins for Neva and Melina Jurgens for best performance.
Yeah.
And then finally, Gregaman X in all caps with a lot of eyes. Okami was his favorite
crazy,
announcement.
man.
But yeah, so overall, at the very least, from an announcements perspective, it was like very few lulls, so many bangers, a lot of really. Oh, right. And as Cognitive points out, as Harrison Ford said, Melinda Jurgens.
Yeah.
God rest that man's soul, because it's not with us much longer, I don't think. But a really good show overall, I think.
Yeah, no, it was good. I enjoyed it. It went by really fast, which was crazy. Like all of a sudden it was over and I was like, oh man, wow. Okay, we're done. Like I thought it was going to be a lot longer. I still miss E3 season. You know, I miss having my live streams up while I'm working and like kind of figuring out, like trying to catch something as it's happening live. But having these condensed shows it's a lot nicer.
Yeah, and it's kind of feeling like, in a way, like obviously we have Summer Game Fest, which is doing its best to be E3, but this was the first Game Awards where I feel like it was kind of getting E3 type coverage. Like GameSpot had like a huge lead up show, and they like gave out their own Game of the Year to Metaphor there, and like so I feel like outlets
are starting. They're smart people,
exactly,
giving out.
But it kind of feels like people are kind of starting to look at the Game Awards as like a bit of an E3 contender, just in the holiday season. So I'm here for it. But good luck to Jeff to try to top this year, next year. I don't know.
He doesn't have to do it. Because this was the 10-year anniversary, right?
I agree.
He had to nail this show.
I agree. And there was someone online that pointed out, like, this was the first time in a few years that he didn't temper expectations leading into it. So it was like he knew that what he had was good.
Yeah.
So I expect that next year we'll get hey guys, just remember this is the 11th Game Awards. Yes. Technically the 12th. They fudged the numbers a little bit for the 10th anniversary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I guess technically the first Game Awards were a part of Spike or whatever. Yeah. And so, but like his own fully owned, this was technically the 10th. So, but yeah, so at the end of the show, he's like, join us next year for the 12th Game Awards. It's like, but wait, hold on. The 10th.
Jeff Keighley presents the Game Awards 10th anniversary.
Exactly. But yeah, overall, a very good show. And might I just say, a great show today with you.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Mrthehuman.
Yeah, whichever.
Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I'll be back whenever you need me.
Hey, Tuesdays are a busy time for a lot of people. So
not me.
There you go. You'll certainly be getting the call at some point again. But Eric, this is a great chance for you to let the people know, whether they're in the chat or listening later, driving their cars. Where can they find you? Because I'm sure that they loved all of the insight that you brought.
Of course. Episode. Two bearded men talking.
Come on.
You can't video games. So unique. So different. Yeah, I'm on Threads and Instagram as Mrthehuman, and very active on Blue Sky as Mrthehuman. Sometimes I have underscores, sometimes I don't. If you just type in Mr. MR the Human, I will probably come up. I'm not Eric the Human anywhere anymore, so if you see that, it's not me. I don't know who would be impersonating me, but it's not me. I also have a podcast that is we put out two episodes a month, so it's bi-weekly, called Short Game Long Talk, where we talk about games that are typically under 25 hours, and we talk about them for about 2.5 hours on average, if you like long episodes. We're pretty in depth. And then in the future for 2025, since we're towards the end of the year, I will be streaming on Twitch, where some of you are watching right now, at Mrthehuman. So if you want to find me on Twitch, I'll be there. If not, I'll just come back when I'm actually streaming and have content to be like, go look. But yeah, that's pretty much all my stuff got going on. But yeah, this is great. I'm very happy to be here. I've been lurking for a couple months and listening for a while, and
it was bound to happen.
Yeah.
It was bound to happen. And hey, if you got space next year on Short Game Long Talk, you let me know.
Yeah, I probably will.
Hell yeah.
Last year was the year of guests, but this year we'll continue to have more guests probably. So
you'll love to see it. You can follow us at Spotlight Games Pod everywhere now. Fuck Twitter. We can say it's everywhere now, including Blue Sky. And shout out to what a lovely chat today. Just to name a few: High Score Weekly, Manuel, VR, Cognitive Clips, the Dumpster Boy, my sweet Dumpster Boy. Oh, how I miss you so. Jake Twitchin, my dirty dogs, Jake Twitchin and GWT Maury. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Spotlight Games podcast, but check us out either tomorrow or Thursday, maybe both, for a little more Indiana Jones. But until then, thanks for being here. We love you. We thank you. Bye-bye.